how many pieces of art that have been created over the course of just nerddom in general,
Yeah.
right? Like there are movies that I love that you've probably never heard of, or
Probably.
vice versa. And like you guys watching here, I'm sure there's things that you guys all love that we haven't even come close to talking about. And that's like the coolest thing about it is like we get to always bridge the gap. Like I was just telling Jimmy off screen, it's like I didn't watch a lot of movies growing up. So these guys are always yelling at me about like, you've never seen this, you've never seen this. And no, I haven't. But that gives me a unique perspective of like when I do watch it, being like, oh, I don't understand why you guys love this so much. But it's also the culture that was around it at the time. Like there's a difference of watching Paranormal Activity at home versus watching it in the theater when it first came out. And I always bring that up because I saw it in theaters and there was so much suspense, so much like no one knows what's gonna happen. Like this is crazy. It's the first of its kind. And I'm like driving home that night and I'm swearing I'm seeing things in the backseat of my car, freaking out. I didn't sleep at all that night. Yeah. And then I have a friend who watched it at home, like whatever, by himself and had zero of that experience. But that's what I'm saying is like the cultural impact of when you watch something when you were growing up versus like me watching it 20 years removed, being like, what is Star Wars? You know what I mean?
It's true because that's one of the things we're experiencing from the generational aspect. And one of my favorite segments is the Flashback Friday, where I'm watching something with either James or Madison, and we watch something that I grew up with, and I have amazingly fond memories of from that time and that era. And then like Madison has destroyed my love of things so many times, like Halloween. That's stupid and slow. And it's like, it really makes me analyze why I like it and why I did fall in love with it and why there are faults to it. Because my 14-year-old daughter sitting there going, I'm watching it in 2023 and this is the most boring thing I ever saw. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. You've experienced basically this MTV effect. And even that's an old reference now where you get, TikTok effect, where things are like 15 seconds and then you're on to the next thing. Yeah. Whereas, these movies are slow burns to get you to the point. And then when you're watching it from that standpoint, or like Jaws, where it's like, that's just a rubber shark coming out of the water. That's so fake. And you're like, yeah, I know, but it was scary, right? No, it was stupid. You're like, yeah, you're right. But it's an interesting perspective.
Yeah, and the desensitization that has happened over time versus like you growing up in the 80s where the shark was terrifying.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like there was people that like lost sleep and this was like a horrifying movie back in dinosaur times.
Yep.
And like
the 80s.
We watch it now and I grew up with things that were infinitely more scary to me, but still aren't even what the kids are experiencing now, where it's like you go to watch a horror movie and I'm like, I don't want to watch The Conjuring. I don't want to watch any of these like crazy things where it's like I am going to lose sleep, but it's that aspect over time that we're trying to offer you guys of being like you get to see the perspective of like Jimmy's scared of the shark and I can't watch The Conjuring. So
no, I mean I say that like I will be in a pool. I literally know there's no way there's a shark in that pool. If I don't see the bottom of the pool, Jaws is going to get me.
Jaws is there.
Jaws is going to get me. I understand the realities. And the same, you'll be in a house. You're totally safe. There is no way there's any dolls or mystic things going to come and get you. You don't know that.
Right.
And I'm
just waiting for that hand clap beside my head.
Exactly.
And bro, like that one scene haunted me for entirely too long. But again, and then with the movies that are even coming out now, like I'm watching some of these trailers and I'm like, can they show that on TV? Like,
yes. But it's funny because then you watch like the news.
Yeah.
And as I was growing up, the news was getting more and more violent. Now you watch, you're like, they're literally seeing people dying right there in the news. And they give you the warning, you might want to look away. It's like, well, then don't show it. Are you kidding me? But I mean, this is violent.
Yeah. The desensitization of media in general is something that is very, I don't know how to put this, something that has changed drastically over time. And I think that offers like James a very unique perspective on like coming into some of these conversations where it's like he doesn't understand, or Madison, even a better example, she doesn't understand the shark, why the shark's scary, what the impact of that moment was, because she wasn't there to experience the cultural impact at that time. And I think that's something that's very nuanced and lost with people not even going to the movies anymore, people watching things at home, like not experiencing things the way that they were meant to be experienced. And I think that I think we should try to get back to movies being events.
Yes, that would be nice.
And even if they slow down on the media releases and really focus on like really impactful stories that are like events that you need to experience, even if they started streaming them in football stadiums instead of movie theaters, and it's like this is the event that you need 100,000 people to experience this to understand what it's actually like, right? I think that would change the movie industry back to something that's really respectful instead of people being like, no, I can wait for it to come out on streaming, or I can wait till, I can see it at the cheap seats or something like that. I think that is something that's been lost over time.
Well, I think that's the distributors are having a difficult time with this as well. One of the things that baffles me is recently Five Nights at Freddy's came out.
I actually watched that.
And it did fantastic at the box office.
Mhm.
But you and I were talking literally a week later, it was on Peacock.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't understand. If it did so well in the box office, who made the decision to put it on streaming right away? And to me, not necessarily that has to be seen in the theater or anything like that, but I think that's one of those where it is a different experience in a theater than it is sitting at home by yourself just watching it.
Right. And Five Nights at Freddy, speaking of that, if we just want to jump down that rabbit hole for a second, Five Nights at Freddy, they like really took that story and streamlined the heck out of it. I don't know if you've seen. Did you know anything about that franchise going into the movies?
I mean, I know the concept of what it is, but I don't know the story. I don't know intricacies.
So the way that they did it is they like these were all nuances and things that you had to find in the game, right? Like this game was like really story driven, but like deep lore. Like you had to like find these mini games and like figure out and piece together the story. Then they took this like idea and just kind of streamlined it in a way where most people can understand. And yes, it doesn't make a lot of sense to someone who isn't a fan of the series. Like if you go in and just expecting like a animatronics or a Chuck E. Cheese movie, like you're gonna be very lost.